All right, everyone, RJ Productions here, and today I'm giving you my top 5 loves, likes, reasons why you should buy this bike. I'm gonna give you those right now. As you know, my buddy Ray just did the video. He gave you his top 5 and top worst things about the bike. I haven't seen his yet. He hasn't seen mine, so we're gonna talk about this, and then we're gonna do a collaboration together and kind of talk about our differences and perspectives from the bike as different riders. But right now, the biggest thing that I want to start with right now, the number one thing that I love about this bike, why you guys should consider buying this bike, is the suspension and the handling of the bike. I will tell you, this bike, compared to my Street Glide, which was my first Harley, I had to change the suspension to Öhlins. I had to adjust it, do all kinds of things to get it right. The stock suspension was awful. On both the front and the back. And so on this bike, I have the stock suspension on it. And if you go through the book and go through the adjustments, you can adjust it. And man, this suspension feels nearly as good as this Öhlins. And there's no reason for me. I don't even feel like I really need to change the suspension. I'm not saying I won't ever do it, but it's not something that it is way down the line. So I would say, man, when you get this bike, when you feel the way that the thing handles, the way that it feels light, the way that it maneuvers, the way that the weight has been redistributed to make it balanced, that's the number one reason I feel like you should get this bike or consider this bike. That's the number one upgrade and thing that I love about the bike. Now you're gonna see a lot of the rest of my top 5 are gonna kind of bleed into this a little bit, okay? And so I'm gonna go ahead and get on that. So number 2 is the weight distribution, right? So one of the things that Harley talked about is that they took about 7.5 pounds of wiring that they redistributed by making the Infotainment Center lighter and the wiring lighter and redistribute the weight. So now the ratio where you feel the center mass is a lot lower, making the bike feel a lot lighter than it actually is. And so that's the one thing that anybody that moves this bike and moves that bike, or anybody that talks about the new bikes compared to the old one, is how much lighter it feels. Now, the other thing that may be contributing to that is going to be the handlebars. Maybe the leverage helps make it feel a little lighter when you're moving it around. But when you're riding it and you're maneuvering, this thing feels so much lighter, even though I believe it's not a big, I think it's like a 35-pound difference in the weight between this one and the old body style. But that is number 2. All right, now, number 3, and again, all these things are pretty close now. We're getting really close. So number 3, I'm gonna have to go with the Power, the 121, the VBT. That thing is so awesome. So I'm gonna tell you why I really like the VBT and why I like the Power. So of course, you know, this is the 121 with the VBT. And the thing about it is that the Power is very smooth. It's very linear. You don't really feel that difference, and you can actually adjust it and change it if you want to feel that aggressive with the modes. And so we'll get into some of that. That's one of the pros, is that you can actually customize your engine braking, your throttle response, all of that like you like. But with the VBT, you could be in 4th or 5th gear and go all the way down to like 30 miles an hour and then throttle through, and the bike will still pull you all the way back up to speeds where you want to stay in 5th. On these bikes, you got to gear. You got to shift down and shift up every time. You can still do that with this. You still want to do it if you want the max power, but you can smoothly transition almost like an automatic. So if you're just creeping with your wife on the back, or you just kind of taking it easy and you just want to brake real quick and throttle right back up, the VBT allows you to do that smoothly without any issue of the bike feeling like it's going to go dead. So that's probably, like I said, the number 3 thing that I like about the bike. So that's my on top 5. That's number 3, is the power and the smoothness of the VBT and the 121. All right, now we're gonna get into number 4. Number 4 is the look and the styling. Okay, and this could have almost shifted to number 1, but it's more just a cosmetic thing to a certain extent. So that's why I had to kind of place it down to that number 4 spot with the styling. But man, I love the look of this bike, the fairing, the big lights. The lights are so much brighter. The way it sits, just the overall look, it just looks so much more sportier. The way they did the mustache bar, the wheels, everything just brings it together. It's a beautiful bike. It's a beautiful upgrade that they did, and I love the lighting. When this bike is coming down the road with the lights on, it's very distinguished. You know it's a road glide, which is very cool, very neat. And so I have to put that at number 4, the styling. It was almost number 1 because when I saw the pictures of this bike on some of the ads when they were previewing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought they could have made the road glide look any better, but they definitely did that. And even the street glide, if the new body style of street glide is a lot better too. Okay, so number 5. And number 5 was kind of tough to me because really, number 5 pretty much encompasses all of this, and it's the comfort. I mean, this bike is very comfortable the way that, because of the lightness, the handling, the way that the seat is set up, the way that the handlebars are set up, the way that it's so flickable, it makes it so much more comfortable. And then like these bars, you can adjust them to where you want them to be to make the bike more comfortable. With the suspension, it makes it more comfortable. With the weight being redistributed, it makes it more comfortable. The boards, everything, that's what I would say. This bike is very comfortable. I love getting on this bike. I've had to do a lot of things to make this bike very comfortable, especially for long distance. This bike, I bought this bike and I went long distance probably within a week. I put 3,000 miles on it going out of town, just out of the box. So that's one thing that's great about this bike. So that's my top 5. There's a couple others that I just want to like honorable mentions is the features of the Infotainment Center. Very cool. I love the little flicker where I can open up and close my garage. I mean, that's just a nice little feature when I pull in. I don't have to get off the bike. I just click it, open my garage, I pull right in. If I'm getting ready to pull out, click it, I just back out and I go. I love that, being able to have that home link on there to open and close the garage. I mean, the music, the sound system, I mean, all of those things, that is probably one of the things that I wanted to put as maybe like it was close on a number 5 was the sound system. That was gonna be kind of one of the things, like out of the box, this thing is great. The only thing I had to really change was the speakers in the back, because I believe they were like 5x7s and we upgraded to the 6x9s in the back, which they should have been on the bike anyway. But it was just $500 to do that, $600, so no big deal. But man, the sound system, I don't have to do anything. I spent probably swapping this sound system out, doing all the things. I probably spent over $5,000 to finally get what I really wanted on this. And to get the setup that I got now on this bike is probably about a $3,500, you know, with the labor, the sound system, all of that. Probably what's in there if you went straight to where I went, but I had to go a lot of trial and error. And it's one of the reasons I'm doing this YouTube stuff here, is just so you guys don't have to go trial and error, so you know what's good, what's not. But that's my top 5, guys. And I know there's many things that are great about this bike. I love the bars, but like I said, that kind of all encompasses. So now we're gonna shift gears and I am gonna give you the top 5 things I hate about the bike. So look for that video, click it, check it out. So that way you'll know the things that are like cons to this bike. But anyway, I hope you liked the video. Check it out, love the bike. Coming at you later, RJ out. All right guys, RJ Productions here, and I am here right now to give you the top 5 things I hate about this bike, the top 5 things that I think they should improve upon, especially on a CVO version of the bike, and then also just some cons to the bikes, things that you might want to know if these things are important to you, that you might want to not look at this bike or look at some other options or just think about it or talk with somebody about it. But I'm going to give you my cons. And I will say this about the bike, guys, to be perfectly honest with you, it was hard for me to find cons. Some of these are going to be very nitpicky, but I'm going to go ahead and give them to you, especially coming from a CVO version of this bike. So let's get into it. And so let's start with number 1. Number 1, the thing that I hate about this bike, and this is going to be probably more specific to the CVO and especially the VBT CVO. And the thing about this VBT is that no upgrades by Harley. Guys, this bike is now over a year old, over a year that I've had this bike. I got a little bit over 14,000 miles on this bike in over a year. And hey guys, the thing that I hate, Harley doesn't really have any upgrades. They don't have a Harley cam that you can put in this thing. They got a little tuner, but it doesn't really do much. And so therefore, you weren't, other than maybe putting some slip-ons on or doing a full exhaust, there's not a lot of opportunity to, in the heavy air breather, there's not a lot of opportunity to upgrade this bike. There's not a lot of things that Harley has put out. For the regular non-CVO bikes like the 117s or even the 121 How output for the CVO ST. Yes, there are upgrades, there are cam upgrades that you can do to the bike. There's a lot of things that can be upgraded. So we, with the VBT, have not been able to put a lot of performance out. One of the only performance things that's come out is aftermarket is the Impact Wiring Solution, ECU. That's something that you can do to the bike right now, but that's it. You still can't even do a cam. But they are getting some really great things out of this bike with that ECU. The other thing is that a lot of guys are actually taking the VBT off and deleting the VBT and actually just going without it so that they could go ahead and do performance cams and tunes and all these things on it. So if you want to keep your VBT, you're kind of out of luck right now for performance upgrades on this bike. So that's my number one. All right, now let's shift gears into number two. And so the number two thing that I don't like about the bike that to me is kind of awful is the Infotainment Center. Okay, on the Infotainment Center, it is very slow and very laggy. So when you cut it on, you gotta wait. So one of the things us guys do on these bikes, the first thing we do when we get ready to get on our bike, we step up and we cut the switch on to give the Infotainment Center time to load, because it's gonna need that time to load. So then you put your helmets on, your gloves, your jackets, or whatever you're trying to do, or you give it a minute, because sometimes if you try to crank it really as soon as you click it on and the infotainment hasn't booted up, it can get a little glitchy. Also, we've had some glitches with the Infotainment Center. Some guys have had some major issues with it. There's been times that I had to reset, pulling the main fuse because the screen wasn't showing up. It's very rare, and it's not having those issues a lot right now after 1 year of ownership. But we did have those glitches where at times you would run the bike and the screen would be black for a little bit, then you'd have to kill it, it'd come back. Sometimes you'd almost have to pull the main fuse for it. So that's something to know, that the Infotainment Center is a little slow, it's a little glitchy, but also this is also one of the things that's kind of on my pros, is that it does have a lot of very unique features that are upgrades compared to the older bikes and the older systems. So it is good in that way. It's a beautiful screen, it's a beautiful system, the modes, I mean, it's awesome. I love all the tech that's in this thing. I want that tech. I just hope that Harley can do some updates to actually make it run a little faster and a little smoother and a little less glitchy. So that's why that's number two on my cons. And so number three, I would have to say it's the seat. Okay, so this seat has been redone by Bad Boys Cycles, by George. He's redone this seat and everything, but this is a stock seat redone. I still have my stock seat, but I would say, man, this seat out of the box is super hard. And I'm talking about your butt will be hurting on this seat when you ride. Tell you from me, I got this bike within a week and took it on a 3,700 mile trip. And when I did that, man, it was killing me the whole way, man. That seat was so hard. It's a cool looking seat. I like the way the ergonomics of it. It's just that the gel and things that they use was so hard, it took so long to break in. Now, when I came back from that first trip, that 3,700 miles, I would say probably around 25 to 3,000 miles, I really started to break the seat in. It started to feel a lot more comfortable for me. And now that seat is more comfortable, but man, it takes a minute to break it in, and a lot of guys didn't wait on that. They just went ahead and had their seat redone. So that's number three, likes. I just wish they would have made the seat more comfortable and everything. And so that was an opportunity for Harley, especially on this CVO model, to actually improve upon. Okay, number four. Number 4 and 5, I'm getting a little nitpicky here. They're really not that big of a con, but I would say the wheels a little bit. I like the wheels, I love the look. This was actually the wheels that were on a previous CVO, but they did it on the Road Glide in a 21. This is a 19. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. The 19 does give it better handling, better performance and maneuvering. So in that sense, it's a pro. On the other sense, it doesn't look styling wise as good. If it was a 21, it looks more beast. When you see one of these older Road Glides with this wheel, with the 21-inch wheel on the front, it looks a lot better. And when I pull my bike up to one and I see one, I'm just like, oh man, I really need the 21 on this. I don't know if it's something I'll change, because I love the handling and the performance of it. So it's kind of one of those things, you either are. It's going to be a pro to some and a con to other. But overall, it's a nice looking wheel. It's an okay wheel, but I would say since they've done this, it does look a lot better in person than it does on video. But I would say this is definitely an area of the bike that could be improved. I see some guys doing some aftermarket wheels and things like that. So that's something that I may consider in the future. But that's something that I just kind of wish maybe it could have been a little bit better styling on the wheel. Not a big negative, but just something to touch on if I got to pick 5. Number 5, again, I'm trying to find something because overall, this is a great bike. But I would say number 5 has got to be, I don't like the fact that it's a 23, but it's a 23 and a half. And it is hard when you're actually trying to explain to people what bike you have. And even when you're buying parts, you got to be very careful because you say 23 Road Glide, you got to be specific to the CVO. You got to make sure that they understand the difference and that they're looking that up. When you explain to people, oh, I got the 23, a lot of people don't think it's a 23, people think it's a 24. So I just think the way Harley rolled that out, that they did it like late in 2023 and versus early in 2023, or just go ahead and doing it for 2024. I just feel like that whole thing was a little bit combobulated, and I get a lot of issues when I'm trying to order parts and buy things and explain to people, and people, it doesn't kind of make sense because I just think they should have did that differently. So that's probably my other con. Again, it's not much of a con, but if I had to say, that would be it. But other than that, man, I mean, the bike is wonderful. The bike is great. I mean, the bike to me is leaps and bounds better than these bikes. I mean, these bikes, I love them. I mean, this was my first bike. But you really have to do a lot of customization to get this bike set up to be what this bike is. And like, I'm telling you guys, if you haven't ridden this bike, you gotta ride these bikes. Now, one thing that I wanna do that I have not done is that I want to ride a 24 Road Glide with the 117, with the regular, with the regular forks and suspension. Because the one thing about this bike, the CVOs do have the inverted front suspension, which may contribute to the comfort, the handling, the maneuver. I know a lot of it is the suspension overall and the weight distribution and things like that and ergonomics. So that's something that I've yet to done that I really want to do, is partner with somebody and ride one of the regular 117 bike just to see how that suspension compares and fares to what we have on these bikes. I'm sure it's pretty similar, but that's something that I want to bring to you guys. But that's probably something that, again, contributes to the pros to it. But anyway, guys, that's it. That's my 5 cons. That's my 5 negatives. That's my 5 reasons not to buy if those things are very important to you. But anyway, stay tuned. We're going to be now doing a collaboration video with Ray where we're going to talk about the things and compare what we put on our notes to see what the differences are between different riders. So stay tuned. We got more coming. RJ out.